Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Phil Sanchez. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Morning with All Indiana Politics. We're now just 2 days away from the official election day. And already more than 1.5 million Hoosiers have cast ballots in this election. That's more than half of the total votes cast in 2016. And you know the top races, president, governor, and attorney general. And the 5th district congressional seat, that race almost certain to be one of the closest in the state. We also want to get outside perspective this morning on that race. So we welcome in Kyle Kondik, the managing editor for Sabato's Crystal Ball for the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. We'll start with the Indiana 5th Congressional District, one of only 18 listed as a toss-up. Why is this race so close?
There are lots of districts across the country, like Indiana 5, that are primarily kind of suburban, exurban. They're relatively affluent. They have high levels of four-year college attainment, kind of white-collar, professional, suburban kinds of districts. A lot of these kinds of districts flipped in 2018 to the Democrats after being traditionally very Republican. A lot of these districts kind of like the Republican Party of Mitt Romney and the Bush family and John McCain, I think more than the Republican Party of Donald Trump. Now, look, if you go to other parts of Indiana, like the southern part of the state, for instance, a lot of voters there love the Republican Party of Donald Trump compared to that of the Bushes or Mitt Romney. But Trump is just, I think, a little rough around the edges for some of these voters in districts like Indiana 5. And what we saw is Indiana 5 is a place where Donald Trump did worse than Mitt Romney did. And it seems like, based on polling, that Trump's probably going to take another step back in districts like this. And in fact, Joe Biden may very well even carry Indiana 5, which, of course, would be helpful for the Democrats in the House race, given that there's not as much ticket splitting, I think, as there used to be in down ballot races. So Indiana 5 is a specific kind of congressional district and there are districts like it all over the country where you're seeing erosion for the president. And
we'll get into the makeup of the state here more so in a second. But is there a specific issue or voter group that's likely to sway this election one way or the other?
Look, I mean, every vote counts everywhere. I mean, I think that what you're seeing is, I'd say, particularly white women, particularly white women with a four-year college degree, but even increasingly white women who don't have a four-year college degree have become more and more skeptical of Donald Trump over time. There's been some erosion with white men as well. But I think you see sort of white women kind of driving this. And again, Indiana 5 there's a district north of Columbus, Ohio 12, that had a competitive special election in 2018. It's a very similar kind of district. There's another one, Missouri 2, which is the St. Louis suburbs. Very kind of similar kinds of places, all sorts of places that Republicans are losing ground.
Yeah, to your earlier point, Indiana considered a strong Republican state. Are you surprised that the state could actually turn blue come Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, I think Donald Trump's still going to carry Indiana. I think that when Barack Obama carried in 2008, it was kind of a fluke. However, it seems like the president's standing has eroded all over the Midwest, and so maybe the margin in Indiana is going to be lower than 2016. Of course, it was very significant, around 20 points in 2016. And look, to the extent that the president underperforms in Indiana, the places where you might see him erode the most include a lot of parts of Indiana 5, I think.
Okay, so that being said, the 5th district has been kind of watched as sort of a bellwether for how suburban women are going to vote. What is that district telling us about races nationwide, including the presidential race?
Well, look, the president's losing ground in a lot of different places, but particularly in kinds of highly educated suburban districts like Indiana 5. And so, it and many other similar kinds of districts across the country, you're seeing the same trends. American politics is pretty nationalized these days. And so, the way that white college voters in Indiana might be feeling is similar to Ohio, and maybe be similar to, California and Arizona and Colorado. The demographic trends are pretty similar across different kinds of states.
So if you were a betting man, and I'm not saying you are or not, based on what you're seeing right now, what is Congress going to look like come January? Will Democrats control both the House and Senate?
I think definitely the House, even if Trump comes back and wins. I think the Democrats are probably narrowly favored for the Senate at this point, but it's pretty fluid. In the presidential race, I think I'd rather be Biden than Trump. But I'm also curious to see the kind of final numbers here as we tick down to the election. Obviously, a lot of people have already voted. It may be that a half or more of the vote is already in before Election Day, and I think turnout's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. So before we let you go, one other question: what are you watching specifically as the numbers come in on election night?
I think we're going to want to look at the states where you're not just getting just the Election Day vote or just the mail-in vote, because some states like Pennsylvania, we're going to get a lot of the Election Day, but not really the mail. And there's going to be a partisan difference. The Election Day is going to be much more Republican. The mail-in is going to be much more Democratic. Florida is a state where we're probably going to get almost all the votes on election night. Florida is always pretty important. It's probably more of a must-win for Trump than Biden. So if Biden were to carry it, I think that would probably speak well of his chances to win the election overall. We're going to get a lot of the puzzle pieces on election night, but we're not going to get quite as many as we're used to. And if the election is close, it may be that we don't know. We wake up on Wednesday morning, or I don't know, or up through the night like people like myself, and we may not actually know who the winner is if in fact the election's close, because there are going to be missing pieces in certain states.
Yeah. Countdown is on. Kyle Kondik, I know you're a busy man. You have a new baby at home. Thank you for taking some time.
Thank you.
Coming up, they've helped shape U.S. politics for more than 2 decades. Now we're going one-on-one with Donna Brazile and Michael Steele. That's next on All Indiana Politics. Welcome back. This week, we had the chance to host a special edition of All Indiana Politics. Our guests, former Republican National Committee Chair Michael Steele and former Democratic National Chair Donna Brazile. The goal? Talk about issues and not specific candidates, starting with the polarization of U.S. politics.
Polarization has been in our politics for a long time. And unfortunately, the polarization we see today has many fathers and a few mothers. It starts with the fact that not only are we divided along party lines, but often along class lines, regional lines. And so it's very important, as we looked at this hyper partisan polarization, that we look at efforts to how do we heal? How do we bring people together? How do we begin to compromise on some of the major issues facing us today?
And I think Donna put her finger on a very important one of those realities is how we have come apart because of political differences, how we let that tribalism sort of infect institutions that citizens need and citizens rely on. And one of the most important, of course, is the vote. It is the one thing that doesn't or should not have that real hard partisan taint to it. And yet we find ourselves more and more polarized. And I think what this election has been able to bring out is not just around some of the issues that may have been talked about throughout the campaign, but certainly around the character of the country, the character of its people, the importance of these institutions, and more importantly, our civic responsibility as citizens.
We need to have common sense approaches to solving our problems. We can have principled leaders both on the conservative side as well as the progressive and those in between, but we should be able to do the work for the American people.
And we should. And I think that that's what we're talking about. In times where it matters, we should be coming together, yet we aren't. And so the American people are wondering, have we opened a Pandora's box? Is there any way back? What is the answer? Do we have to vote everyone out and start over? Honestly, what is the answer here for our viewers who are wondering, how do we get back to normal?
So, hey, Brooke, can I take that one, please?
Yes, you can, Michael. Go ahead. Yeah, you may have to do that. I mean, when you're stuck on stupid, every parent knows, everybody's had that child in the family. You look at them and go, you know what? I'm just going to have to do something dramatic with this one, right? We've all been there. We know, and we are the parents in this situation. We're the ones who govern the outcomes here ultimately. And two things. One, as citizens, we need to get back in the game, and we need to reassert our
prominence and our position relative to this government, because we are the government. We're the ones ultimately decide. They serve at our pleasure.
Recent polls show race relations at a 20-year low in America. The police often involved in these discussions. Michael, I want to start with you. A common GOP platform, law and order, right? Especially where we are seeing rioting. How does that message help the party?
I learned this from Rush Limbaugh many, many years ago. Words mean things, right? And when I used to listen to Rush, he would always say, words matter, words mean things. And so you have to understand when people hear something, what they're hearing. So yes, law and order works in a lot of white communities around the country because their experience with the law is not the same as it is for African Americans. It's not that we're against law and order. No, absolutely not. But we also know what happens when the law and the order are out of sync. And there are too many times where, I have to tell my sons who are, one is in his 30s and there's others in his late 20s. I still talk to them about be careful when you're out and about with any encounters you may have with police. When you're with your white friends, understand that if you get stopped by the cops or a situation where cops come into a room, they're going to look at you very differently than they look at your buddies. You need to understand that.
On the flip side of that, a lot of Democrats have said that they support defunding police departments, but that message scares a lot of people, and they think it means getting rid of police departments. What does it really mean? And do you support it?
Rethinking policing in the 21st century. Just a few Democrats, not a lot of Democrats. Democrats come in all varieties. I'm a Southern Democrat, but I love my Northern Democrats. I even love my progressive Democrats. I consider myself more of a moderate. And I lean a little center left as opposed to people who are calling taxpaying American citizens radical, as if to demonize people who are different or who have different value system. No, what it really means is that we need to ensure that in the 21st century, all of our police departments have the proper training, the proper tools to de-escalate situations that might turn, quote unquote, violent. But here we are in the 21st century arguing about law and order when we should be talking about equal justice under the law. I tell my friends, and by the way, I live in a neighborhood where many of my white neighbors have Black Lives Matter sign. I had to go out and get one. I'm like, well, wait a minute. They got signs out in front of their homes, and I'm Black, and I don't have a sign out. So I went and got me a Black Lives Matter sign. I had to first ask my white neighbors, where did you get it? Because people understand Black Lives Matter is not anti-white or anti-Hispanic or anti-anyone else. It's to ensure that everybody should be treated with respect and common decency.
What do you want to see happen in 2021 to bring us all together? And we'll start with you, Donna, real quick.
I want our economy. I want our economy back. I want our schools reopened. I would like to see this virus under control. It's very difficult to explain to anybody unless you've experienced it, what it's like to live under this pandemic, what it's like to spend your entire life teaching. I'm a teacher, and I cannot be in the classroom with my students. That's my lifeblood. That's who I am. So I want to see 2021. Our economy is on the road to recovery. We've been able to find the proper vaccines and the proper mitigation, but I also want to see our schools reopen, our restaurants, and our bars, because I'm a Louisianian. Yes, I want to see it all real.
Yes.
Michael, your vision of 2021?
So I think before we get to all of that, we've got to reconnect as citizens, as Americans. How many of you Hoosiers out there are mad at a family member because they support Donald Trump or they support Joe Biden? How many of you are upset with a friend because they're not a part of your tribe, because you have political differences? Take the political planks out of your eye and start to look at each other again as citizens. Because all the things that Donna just described and all the things that we like to get done, we can't do it if we hate each other. We can't do it if we allow, white nationalists and neo-Nazis and hate groups control our destiny, control our conversation, and control our communities. So I'd like to see us begin to push past the ugly and the stupid that have sort of created the atmosphere we find ourselves in right now, and recognize that while I may disagree with Donna Brazil on healthcare and on the environment and a host of other policy issues, that's my sister, that's my friend. That's someone that I'm gonna go and have a nice tall Louisiana drink with, right?
And some gumbo, because I will stir it up for you. I will stir it for you.
We can't get to the gumbo until we're ready to do that.
Yeah.
So none of this happens unless we're ready to make it happen.
It was well said. It was a good conversation. The full special edition of All Indiana Politics is available right now on wishtv.com and our Wish TV YouTube page. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back two of our favorites, Republican Whitley Yates and Democrat Drew Anderson. Thank you very much for being here, guys. We have a limited amount of time, so let's start with the governor's race. Whitley, how confident are you heading into Tuesday?
I have the utmost confidence in Governor Holcomb's performance and proven results over the past 4 years that we're going to get another 4 years.
Drew?
Well, I think it's a wild card. I think it's because Governor Holcomb has really flubbed his response to COVID, and you see that with the rising support for rainwater. So it's honestly wild card.
Well, I was going to say, in regards to rainwater, Whitley, are you concerned that he's going to take some votes away from Governor Holcomb?
I mean, let's be honest, absolutely not. You have to do more than comment on Facebook to have the type of impact that people are saying that he's going to have. The truth of the matter is the governor has been persistent. He's been a leader through COVID, and he's helped keep Indiana safe. And that's what you're going to see on Election Day, are people responding to that.
Drew, we'll turn the conversation back to you. The 5th District, obviously closely watched. We talked about it earlier in the show. Are you confident heading into Tuesday?
I think Christine Hale has an edge, and it's because from day one, she is laser focused on healthcare and protecting access to healthcare for all the Hoosiers in that district. And I think the biggest indication is that desperate ad that Victoria Spartz put on TV using her own family to attack Christina Hale. From my experience, whenever a candidate does that, they're definitely on the losing side.
Okay. What do you think about that one?
I completely disagree.
Okay.
I think Hale's ads have been fear-mongering. You're going to lose your health care, the same playbook that Democrats usually use. And I think her putting her father up there has really just kind of hit home for people, because you're disgracing their name. And I think that for her, someone who advocates that she is some shining beam of hope and prosperity for CD5, we've seen the ads that she's run, and it paints a completely different picture.
Can I interject real quick? Yeah. Here's the thing. Christina Hale, she has only made this about her and Victoria Spartz. And so if anyone is going to be making those claims again, it shows the desperation. And Christina Hale perfectly fits the district, and that's why she's going to be a great congresswoman.
Drew, we'll stay with you because we were talking off camera that you think that as Indiana goes, maybe that will help the top of the ticket. Explain.
I think Joe Biden, when you think 4 years ago, let's go 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton lost Indiana by about 20. And that really dragged down the rest of the ticket. Honestly, if it were a different year, I feel like it'd be John Gregg that'd be governor right now. Knowing that and knowing 2020, I think that Joe Biden's going to keep it in the mid-single digits here in the state, which will cause Indiana House to finally break its supermajority for the Democrats, and for Senators, state of Kansas to pick up some seats, and for Hale to win.
Okay. Attorney General, real quick.
I think it's going to be a close contest. That's kind of a toss-up.
Whitley?
Todd Rokita all the way. Everyone knows it. Read the Howie.
Shocker that you were going to think the Rokita. Right?
Read the Howie.
I have 45 seconds, guys. Final prediction for Tuesday. Whitley, we'll start with you.
Final prediction, Indiana will be as red as it can be. Governor Holcomb will have another 4 years. We'll see Todd Rokita in the AG's office. Congressional District 5 is going to be close. I think you'll see Victoria Spartz come out with half a percentage point ahead.
Drew?
I think Christina Hale is going to make a great congresswoman, and I think Weinzapfel could sneak it through. And I think at the end of the day, Joe Biden's going to be our next president, and finally we could put to rest all of this division.
Okay.
Nothing on Woody, I see.
We'll see what happens. Countdown is on, guys. Good to see you both.
Good to see you.
We'll talk soon. More All Indiana Politics coming up after the break. And thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics on this Sunday morning. Make sure that you join us Tuesday night and maybe beyond for election results as they come in. We'll also be back here next Sunday morning, 9:30. Have a great rest of your weekend.